If you enjoy painting content, things like that, please do leave a like and subscribe. And I'm going to be here for the next hour or so, answering any comments, any questions, any queries. So if there's anything that you want to ask, please do let me know. And yeah, we're going to be working on some Bladeguard today. So I have a few books with me, some of which are quite inspirational for things like this. So these are going to be obviously first company because they're Bladeguard, and I highly recommend getting yourselves some nice books like the Ultimate Guide here, just so you've got yourself some inspiration. If you compare, or if I compare on your behalf, a Bladeguard veteran here and the actual size of a mini, you can see in so much more detail as to what you're aiming for. So it's really, really useful. So I'm going to leave that out across the side here so I can keep referring back to it as and when I need. Kind of the same with the Bladeguard Veteran Sergeant's helmet there. So the white stripe on there, obviously this is not done. This is very, very, very rough. But it gives me a rough idea as to what I'm working towards. Now, if you do look at this miniature, you may notice there's not really a great deal of depth to it. This is literally base coated, sprayed in Macragge blue, and I've done a little bit of detail work on the shield there. That's required quite a bit more work, but it's useful just to gauge where everything's at. I don't have to faff around building up layers of Macragge blue, but I have something there as a good base to start with. And as you can see there, we've got Tallyman, who's the bestest boy, apart from when he walks across, because he likes to walk across here, he likes to flop his tail across here, which is right in line with the paints, and he knows what he's doing because he gets a tickle for it. So he's very, very, very clever. But we won't say that too loud, otherwise I'll keep on doing it. Right, paint I'm looking for right now is this Drakenhof Nightshade, the name of which had completely escaped me. So, any ultramarines that I'm painting, I used to use Null Oil. Null Oil creates this very muted blue, which is fine. It doesn't look bad by any means. But if you compare Drakenhof to regular Macragge blue here, you'll see that there's depth to the paint, but there's also a really nice deep richness to the colour. So that is what we use when we are painting our miniatures. So this is pretty much an all-in-one step. Smother it on all blue components, all parts of his armour. Don't worry about pooling so much. I know a lot of people will tell you not to pool with these paints. It doesn't matter. You can go back over it and you're going to be touching up these pieces anyway. Sometimes it's not as bad, and having a little bit more than less is nice. Let me just move that light so it's not entirely in your way. There we go. So we actually have quite a lot of miniatures to get through. I did a post recently, just a quick shot with a few boxes that I have full of miniatures. There's a lot of them. I had massive Ultramarines, Tau, Blood Angels armies back when it was firstborn. So we're talking 20, oh god, I hate to say it, but like 25 years nearly. It's been a while since I've been playing this hobby, so Space Marine 2 got me back, if you're interested. I think it got back a lot of people in the hobby as well. It's definitely been a fun catalyst. Something that I've not actually played that much of recently. Due to the acting stuff being so busy, I've just not had time. But now I'm trying to make a bit more time for these things, but really I need to paint my army. It's one of those things that's easy to put off. Let me get this miniature all washed up. Once it's all washed, we'll go see if there's any questions. So if you do have any questions, anything you'd like to ask, now's a good time. I'll get back to you very shortly. Again, I don't just paint Ultramarines. I have Tau, I've got Tyranids, I've got Blood Angels. I paint a lot of miniatures. And variety is the spice of life, as they say. Again, he's relatively simple. But you can probably get a better look of this than I can. And then what we'll try and do in the next hour is get into the shield, make sure all of that is highlighted. Let me see if you can see it up close here. Across here, we've just got like a little smudge over. So my golds, if any of you are wanting to know how to paint gold, very simple. I like to use Retributor armor, and I like to go over Retributor armor with Dakarov flesh. And it just creates this really nice sort of, not bronzy, but ornate gold. I think that finish is just beautiful. That's exactly what I want for my miniatures. So you might have different versions that you might want to do. You might want to brighten it back up. You might want to make it a bit, you know, highlight towards those silvery tones. I don't in particular. I just really like that sort of a reddish, rich gold. You can see here, we're not being precious about this shade either. We're making sure it gets well and truly covered. You'll notice as well, I have done the helmet in Corax white. That's had about 2 or 3 layers on it to get it really, really smooth and a nice flat colour. If you're doing whites, obviously don't start from pure white. I say obviously, but it depends what level you're at. You might not know. But yeah, try and avoid being in a pure white. I'm trying to go for something that's a bit darker. I'm trying to use the correct terminology here because there's other ways that you can play about with whites as well, which is choosing a warm or a cool white. So if you want, you can go with like your shanty bones or whatever you call it, a warm white, an off-white. Or you can go for a blue or off-white, which is what I tend to do with these veterans. So I like them to look relatively beat up, but I like their whites to be fairly pure. And I think a blue or white, when you've got a rich blue model like this, goes down really nicely. You see all the nice little details that we've just got on here. Now, sometimes when you are spraying them, you do miss certain areas, which is fine, so we can go back over them as well. So what we're going to do is Drakenhof all over his helmet, and that's going to create the depth that we're then going to build onto the next layers with. So I just want to get it in the recesses. Doesn't have to look pretty, just needs to be even in those recesses, and then we go over it afterwards. And that's where we get the nice finish at the end of it. And do we want to do that to the white in there? Sure. So yeah, by the time that we go over it, it's going to look fantastic. The early days, a little bit less so. Yeah, just fill in through there. Sort of like you have to trust the process, which is usually a running theme when you're doing painting. Very much so. Don't see the finished model until you're about 90% there. I mean, probably notice if you watch any of my shorts, any of my videos, when I'm painting or when I've finished a miniature, the heads are always last, because I think that's like the most important thing. Once you do the head, that is the miniature pretty much done then. There we go, got him up to one stage there. And you can't see it, but I can. My cat is wanting to come in, so I'm going to go let him in. This is Batman, if you know the lore of my cats. Batman is one of the 2 boys, and he very much so likes to go in and out and in and out and in and out. Doesn't settle. Which is fine, isn't it, boy? Yes, good boy, Batman. Right, so that is going to take, I'd say, about 10 minutes to dry. Some bits of really, really deep pooling, like on here where I know it's going to go gold, I can just absorb a little bit of it. Nice thing with all of these veterans, compared to how veterans used to be when they were metal, these ones have the nice tabards on them. I think they look fantastic. And old metal miniatures with tabards were a bit clunky, a bit clumsy. And if you've seen the old metal version of Calgar, I mean, that really is a great looking miniature, full of character, but certain elements like his, I don't know what you'd call those, but yeah, they very much so took up like the entire front and back, so they could only do so much with the moulding process. And funnily enough, you've seen that fall off, so any of you that see any of my painting videos, essentially I like to make sure that any component that's blocking, if it can be fitted later, I fit it later. There's no point getting in your own way. So what I'm going to do now is let that one dry. I'm going to have a quick look at the Veteran Sergeant. Whilst he's there, have a look at the Veteran Sergeant on here. So again, I think the Stern Guard looks fantastic. What I do find a little bit annoying with how they've done Bladeguard veterans, and I'll use a paintbrush there to just point out, the gold trim on the shoulder pad. I mean, the gold trim is indicating of the company, so all veterans should have white shoulder pads, unless you're in Terminator armour, in which case you're in Terminator armour, you have to be a veteran, or at least be a captain. But even then, you got like your likes of Captain Agamemnon, he wears his Terminator armour. So yeah, when it comes to these guys, I'm tempted to do white shoulder pads rather than, or white trim rather than gold trim. It's a tiny little difference, it doesn't make the world. I think it looks beautiful with the gold because everything else is gold and ornate, but I really want to see what it's like with the correct company symbols. If you're new to the channel as well, please do leave a subscribe. I do a lot of painting. We'll go through a lot of painting techniques. I'm actually just going to get the MacBook now. If you want to leave any comments, any questions, please do let me know, and I will answer them in due time. So we've got some Dakharov Nightshade here just drying away. Right, I'm looking on the Veteran Sergeant here. Let's get some white down, I think. Yeah, so we're going to start on his shield. Any of you that have played Space Marine 2, you have your shield with the pistol attached to it, or you have your shield hand with your sidearm. So I've made that little mod with this miniature. Made him look quite cool. And because I have the Wands of Ultramar box, I do already have the good old Veteran Sergeant there, whose name has completely left my head, but he lives somewhere in the multitude of books that I've got. So we have 500 Worlds here, which again, useful reference. Remember, art inspires life, life inspires art. So if you can, try and find something that inspires you to paint and inspires you to go a certain direction. Mataurus. Okay, so Veteran Sergeant Mataurus. He has gold trim on his, and I'll probably keep that because he's a named character and I feel like that's the right thing to do. However, when it comes to these Bladeguard veterans, they're very much so going to be done in a way that I think is right for the first company. So it might not be what you might enjoy the most. If that's the case, paint them gold. I think that's also quite a smart idea. So even this here, this is Korax White. Just see, get a nice layer of that on. And whilst you're early in the days of painting, don't worry about making any mistakes. In fact, I highly advise making mistakes, because the quicker you learn, the better at painting you'll be. So, yeah, it's a slow process. I think because I have decades of experience painting, it's less of an, what's the word I'm looking for? It's less of a thought process. Like, I don't think of recipes. I kind of just have a good idea. I can look at a colour and go, this is what I need. This is an apothecary that is painted almost entirely with contrast paints. He's not fully painted, obviously. But we do have awesome miniatures like him, who's still not fully painted, but he's, I'd say, 80% of the way there. We've got some skulls that need painting in like a bony colour. We've got his little section there that needs painting. And we've got a lot of highlights to go on with. But for now, we're going to play about with these Bladeguard. Again, if you're new to the channel, please do leave a like and subscribe. It makes a huge difference, especially when the channel is this size. We are trying to grow the channel to 1,000 subs, just so that we can actually start focusing more and more on making content, which in this case is going to be lots of hobby content. So if you like painting, if you like building, if you like battles and things like that, we've got it all coming. And I'm also an actor, so I have a lot of creative ideas in other fields as well. I'm quite tempted to do a bit of a documentary on what draws people into the hobby. So if you're interested in seeing that, please do let me know. Now, Corex White is a bit thicker than White Scar, so if any of you are base coating for white, your Celestra Greys, your Corex Whites, again, I'm using Citadel paints, but you don't have to. You can use any paint you wish. But your Corex White is a very decent white. It's got reasonable opacity, and I think after about 2 layers or so, you're getting to a point where you're not going to be worrying about having anything other than flat white, which is half the issue. I mean, any of you that really hate having like thick brush strokes and things like that, you want to keep your paints thin. Corex White is nicely thinned from the off, but it's still opaque enough that 2 layers is enough to have a flat white. And what we'll find with what I'm doing today, because I'm going to go over it with Drakenhof, 2 layers, Drakenhof Nightshade, that's going to discolour it anyway, so it'll have 3 layers of white by the time it's fully finished. It should look pretty good. Now, we've got lots of detail on the shield. This is straight from the mould as well. You've got 3 different purity seals on there, which I find pretty cool. Please do leave me some questions. Any questions at all. I don't just paint Ultramarines, I paint Blood Angels as well. And if I go into my wonderful drawer here, we have lots of really cool minis. So this is a Dawnbreaker from Horus Heresy. So this is 9th Legion, aka Blood Angels. He is really nicely painted. He took a lot of time. And then we got my absolute favourite, which is Ralderon. And he's a very special mini. So, yeah, Forge World resin. So, any questions about different colours, please do just leave me a comment in the live section or a comment afterwards that I can respond to. That would be really helpful. Give me a second whilst I just set a comment here. Right, just gonna let the cat out, and then we're gonna go back to painting some Bladeguards. Anyway, Batman. Bless him, he got scared by a plane flying overhead. He's a good boy. Please do drop me some questions. I'm here to help teach and help you learn anything that you want to know, different colour combinations. Bladeguards are quite varied in what we can apply to them, so if you want me to test anything for you, we can. Again, if you're new to the channel, please do like and subscribe. It makes all the difference. It really, really does. And you've got me for another roughly 50 minutes. So quite a lot of time if you've got any questions. So none of this is neat, none of this do we have to be particularly careful about. We can really just get paint on plastic. But by the time that we've done our shades, that's when we start neatening up. And it's a bit of a slow build up over time as well. You'll see all of the detail that are on these shields. They are probably one of my favourite shield designs in all of Warhammer. And that says a lot because they really, really do like different shield designs for different war games. But man, remember you didn't like going out. So with this shield here, you can see that we've put on our Drakenhof. We've worked on the trim. But we've also put the Retributor armour in and gone over it with the Drakenhof, the Dark Oath flesh. I keep calling this Dakarov, it's not. Dark Oath. So yeah, that gives you this really nice sort of like a rusticy gold. It's like it's been tarnished, which I think if I see a Space Marine, I don't think their gold is fully gold. I think it's something that is worn down a bit, so it's a bit harder, sort of like a different alloy. And that way they have something that's a bit more usable as well as beautiful. Right, I'm just gonna top up. You can see the Drakenhof nightshade that's gone in there. So we're just gonna neaten up now, trying to avoid things like recesses, so we can create a bit of depth. Just gonna need to whack that up here. It is interesting painting from a bit of a distance away. So yeah, now we have to be a bit more accurate. I'll just try and do a little spot as an example. Now Corax White is about as thin as you need to directly apply it. Thankfully, that saves me a little bit of trouble, but you can see right here we do have our wet palette. And I highly recommend a wet palette. There's a lot of Citadel paints especially that are quite thick, and you really, really, really don't want to get thick layers of paint on. It doesn't create a very pretty end product. Just wash that off. It was just thickening up a little bit, so we'll just get another little layer on there. I also recommend when you do get to stages where you're happy with the paint that you go over with a varnish. Don't necessarily leave it too long, because whilst you're handling the miniature you can get smudges on it or start to rub away paint layers. All the things that you really, really don't want to do. So just looking at that there, you can immediately see the depth with like the little rivet at the top versus everywhere else where it's a bit dull. the process works. And then what we'd end up doing is with those rivets is going over those with another layer of like white scar as your highlight. And that just creates a really nice, bright, clean shield. You gotta remember that these are storm shields as well, so they are in law technically veiled in a disruptor field, so things that are hitting them shouldn't really be damaging them. Let's quickly grab a drink. If any of you do like your Ultramarines, we have in the background here the banner of Macragge. This is obviously not painted. The blue has been shaded, but here we have one of the original metal miniatures as well. You can see metal, not fine cast. This miniature is, well, I don't even know how old. It's been a while. And amongst my 6 Victrix Guard there, and if any of you are into the hobby side and the building side, I managed to get, it was a Space Wolf model that was available as a freebie from your local game store, your local Warhammer store. I managed to chop him up, get rid of certain details, and turn him into a Victrix Guard. And it's hard to see here, but if I shine the light in, see just down there, there's a little weird gap, and that is filled in with green stuff. And that's because the original Space Wolf plate didn't match up with the Victrix Guard plate here. I also have an original Honor Guard and put him on a 40mm base. So you can only make 5 Victrix Guards from the Victrix Guard box, which as we all know is 1 shy. So I had to get a bit crazy and improvise my own. And this one, this is one of the free miniatures that you can get just by going into store and asking for, like, it comes with a flamer. The kit is like a monopose thing. Obviously put it on a 40mm base, trimmed off the rim to the original base. That is from the Saturn 9 box set that you can see in the background just about here. That's from the Saturn 9 Commander. So that's originally like his loin piece. I've added a few like spares that you get in like intercessor boxes and things like that, just to fill in gaps so that it doesn't look out of place and he still looks ornate enough. But yeah, just little tiny mods to make a free miniature into something quite special. I've had 2 of these miniatures in the past. My other one is a lieutenant now. I highly recommend you just go into a store, you just ask them and make something fun out of them. Now I'll go back into the shield here. Try not to be too tight in. I think I might go a little bit too close to the edge there, so you lose a little bit of that depth. A little bit of concentration. There's quite a lot of details around here, so you have to be relatively careful with the trim. Just lightly tap on there onto the little rivet. Same with that edge. I want to just really carefully work your way around each of these rivets, of which you think how many rivets are just on this shield alone. Now, you can, if you wanted, paint the entire shield white, or, you know, not necessarily this centre bit, but the rest of it, paint it white, go over with Apothecary Grey, which is a contrast paint. That is going to give you sort of like that intermediary grey with the whitish highlights at the very top. And it might save you a little bit of work if you, again, the whole point of this video is really not to concentrate too much on these details. I think I just get a little bit lost in it and then I enjoy it too much. but it's a case of times that we need to speed up. Again, working on a veteran is probably not the best thing. If I was working on just a regular intercessor, maybe I could speed things up a little bit more then. Again, sort of like the less details, the less to get you bogged down with. But even then, just going in on the Ultramarines blue with like your Dakar off, that saves you having to build up from like black. I've seen a lot of people still using like starting with a black base coat and adding on layer after layer after layer of blues until you eventually get to your end product. And it's so much more work. And this is like, they're genuinely techniques that came from like the, you know, early 2000s and sort of the late 90s. We don't do that anymore. It's just unnecessary. You may also notice that I don't do like Xenophil highlights or anything like that. My style is more akin to the box art. That's been sort of my inspiration since I first joined the hobby, and it still really is. That's sort of where my heart is with these miniatures. Those crisp, clean lines. Now, I don't always advocate that you do, you know, the full 2 layers of highlights and things like that. I'm quite happy once you have like this shading in there to just go in with 1 layer of highlights. It looks fine for tabletop. Not absolutely perfect, but certainly more than good enough for games and showcasing, and you can go back in over it after you've got through a bit of army. You can see there I made a little bit of a mistake, and we've actually put a little bit of paint just in that line there. See if it zooms in on it. Get that focus. There we go. So just there. So we're actually going to get rid of that. Don't forget, guys, if you can, please like and subscribe. That's really, really, really helpful to me. Again, trying to grow the channel a bit and eventually be able to do this, not entirely on a full-time basis, but certainly more often. Again, I'm an actor as well, so I do an awful lot of things in between. So if any of you are interested, I do voice acting, I do screen acting, and I do theatre work as well. So I tend to be quite busy across the seasons, especially when we have like works for like Christmas or school holidays, things like that. I really, really, really pick up then. But I also have commercial TV stuff, voiceover gigs, all throughout the year. Just fill in there. So that I've just done there was Black Templar, using that sort of like the layer to add a bit more depth to the corners. And you can, if you go through this process, you make any mistakes, you go a bit too close to an area, or you just want to make a rivet just pop a little bit more, go in with something like Black Templar on white. It's quite a bright colour, but what you can do to get around it is then just go back over your rivet again with a nice white. So you can see the shield is starting to come along now. So the rivets are popping a little bit more. We have a bit of depth against that gold now as well. So what you will find with this channel is I'm going to be doing more live painting. Problem is, even with the shorts, someone like Cato Sicarius, that miniature took a long time to paint. I mean, anywhere in the region of, you know, 12 hours-ish. And I can't document the entire 12 hours. That would be insane. I mean, you see the Kieran brothers, and they literally, not brothers, the Kierans from the Kieran show. And they're quite literally just chopping in between, you know, 8-hour segments. So the live streaming sort of gives me a chance to at least show me doing the work. So if you do enjoy it, please leave a like. It means an awful lot. And it just motivates me to keep going, which, to be fair, I'm going to do anyway. I'm not really a quitter. But it'd still be nice. Really getting that white in the corners there. I've had to set you up over my shoulder, so if the camera's not quite pointing right at the shield, just let me know and I'll try and adjust. So my brush is starting to split now, so we're just going to give that a quick wash. And then this is my extra small artificer, and it tends to pick like a little dried point at the nib, so I have to just literally through my fingers pull off that nib. I am a bit of a heathen. I will do the, roll the bristles on my tongue, and then that gives me a sharp point. Some people might find that disgusting, but I've been doing it for absolute years and I refuse to change. But I'm going to keep that extra small brush out. What we'll do now is we'll jump on to the white scar. I'm just going to see if I can get a bit of black from my wet palette there. Just add in a little bit more on that line. That's where I made the mistake earlier. That's looking a lot better now. So already there's a little bit of depth to it. It's got a little bit of colour just in the shadows. And we're going to work on top of that with a bit of a brighter colour. I mean, that's thick as anything now. However, we can use it to our advantage because we are doing spot highlights. So again, we want each of these rivets just to really pop off. And that way we add a little bit more depth, a little bit more detail to the miniature. You can tell my concentration level's really going up now. This is where you have to be precise. We'll get to that stage when we'll just clean the brush off. I also have lying around in here some brush soap as well. So any of you that are looking for brush soap, that is my choice. It's worked really well. You'll see when I open that, it's a bit disgusting, but that very much so cleans off any paint from your bristles. Not all of it, but certainly enough to soften off any big pieces, and it conditions your brush as well. So just helps your brush to keep its tip. We'll go back into concentrating a little bit just to get this white down. I'll try and make sure that you've got the best view. It is quite tricky. It's almost like using the force. I'm just going to quickly just touch up on that edge there. Work our way around the edge. For whatever reason, YouTube Live on the app won't adjust the cameras to the macro mode, so I can only go so close, unfortunately. So you probably have to wait for these details in a later post, or I might put it into its own video so that you can be able to see them in full depth. Doing here is wipe that onto the wet palette. See if that'll thin it down a little bit. So for some reason my white scar is quite thick, which is not the newest of white scars, so might be indicating it's getting time to change it. We just want a little bit. Because the rivets are quite close up to the edge, I'm not working on the inside of the rivets on this bit. Just so that we can create a bit of depth there. Please do leave any comments, any techniques that you want me to share. If you want to do lenses, we can work on lenses. Again, I've got my books nearby as well. If you want to go through techniques, we can show theoretically how they've done it and then how I would do it. We can also go through quicker access to get to like red lenses. If you struggle with doing lenses or eyes and things like that, we can go through techniques that work well. I have plenty of examples with me. It's coming across really nicely now. What I also find with the heavy metal team is they will paint the inside detail as well. Not everywhere, but in a lot of places. So depending on how much time you want to spend on a miniature, you really can just go the extra mile. I'm not going to do that because that sounds like a lot of effort. And my light has just dropped down. My partner might have changed the settings back on the lights. So we have, because we both work very hard, me and my fiance, we have our light set to come on so the cats aren't in the dark. Ironically, it's meant that I'm in the dark. Give me a second, let me see if I can fix this. Okay, are we back? Are we back? I think we're back. There we go. We have light again. And if you can see under that light, I'll give some extra here. Again, it might be a little hard to see just because I'm a bit constrained with lighting here. But you should see a bit more depth to it. The rest of it should be a nice clean white. And then once these are done, it should look quite fantastic. Speaking of which, should we go on to them? I think that would be quite nice. Depending on your art style, you might want to do a red wax seal. So again, if we go onto here, it's a slightly purpley red, again, sort of like your corn red, but I use a different technique. Or you can go for more of this style, which is a bit more purpley. Don't know if you can see the difference between them on there. Right, try and get that back into shot there. So yeah, a little bit of a difference. Let me go in with, that's Blood for the Bladeguard. Definitely don't want that one. That's a technical paint. Screamer Pink. So Screamer Pink is going to be our initial highlight. We've got Major's Purple. Nope, that's not the right colour. Got a pinky one. There it is. Gene Stealer Purple. That's the one. And we start off with a layer of Gal Vorbak Red. So that's one of my favourites for purity seals. You can see the colour there. It's a bit pinky, bit red, bit purple. It's a great little colour. And just get my telly on. Hopefully light up the room a little bit more. Give me a second. There we go, just a little extra light. I mean, even with really, really bright lights in this room, it's still quite dark. And the UK, over the last 6 weeks or so, we've only really seen 2 days of sunlight. Everything has been grey skies, which is not an ideal. Now, this is going on a bit thicker than I would normally like, but it'll be fine. It'll look nice regardless. There we go. Try and tuck it in the corners as well. Now, even with your fabrics, your cloths, and your purity seals, you might have different choices as to what you want for the initial colour. I tend to stick with a warmer, less fleshy tone sort of a fabric, but I've seen plenty that have gone sort of almost a skin route, and they still look very good. Obviously, just highlighting more of it to like a bony colour. So it's kind of just dealer's choice. It's whatever you fancy. And that's one of the things that I really, really love with Warhammer in general, which is it's your hobby. You make it how you want it to be. Went a little bit off there. Again, my light is a little bit naff. Go put that above. So put that there. Hopefully that's not too intrusive for you. There we go. So we'll just do a few bits at once, just so as we got the colour out, we're not wasting anything. I mean, he has a lot of purity seals on him. I think both of these to the sides are ones that I've put on. I wanted him to look really well decorated. I mean, again, playing into the lore of things, he is a veteran, and veterans very much so like to show off, you know, all of their achievements, all the campaigns that they've been on. And I think it looks nice once the model's fully fleshed out and he's no longer just shades of blue. It really, really stands out. Close that down. Now we have quite a lot of details coming up, so we've got everything from you know, lenses to trim work to leather work to capes. There's quite a lot to get ourselves dug into. Now, I have 3 browns that are all very, very, very similar. They're all just different tones, but they're not really different, like, levels. They're all about the same sort of brightness, apart from maybe Steel Legion Drab, but they're all different warmths. So, Baylor Brown, I can't really think of many good reasons why I get Baylor Brown. I've used it recently for the back a bit of the foundation of the plate on his little footstep there, just to differentiate it from the actual ground. But it's not a colour that I use too often. Also, if you've not seen Cato Sicarius, there is Cato Sicarius. We'll get a bit more light on him. But yeah, really, really nice miniature. Bit of a pain to build. Anyone who has built it, I understand your pain. However, what I did was I didn't glue in his front plate there, and I didn't glue his cloak in, so I had access to everything to paint it separately, including his helmet, which was nice. But he's a cool model. He stands out. Another one of the recents, if you've not seen it, is Captain Titus. And he really is a super cool miniature. I mean, there's a little bit more I could do with him, but it's not much at this point. One of my favourites, actually, is his fur. So you can see there's like little black lines in there as well. I've done what I would call a normal gradient, which is you've gone from a deep red to a brighter sort of a tan, and then as you get further up, the fur gets darker. That way you've got the most contrast in that change of colour. And at the top there, it just nicely frames his head. And again, it's a bit darker than his skin tone. The heavy metal team went a very different direction, which is absolutely fine. Again, a bit of a dealer's choice. But for me, I really wanted his fur to be more cohesive with the rest of the design with a cape. So I'm going to use Talon Sand for the purity seals as the base. It's a nice neutral colour, not too dark, not too bright. I'm going to put that down. It's also a nice thicker paint, so I don't have to put on too many layers. Again, even these days, I'm sure there's people that complain that Citadel paints are too thick, but Citadel paints compared to what Citadel paints used to be, well, that's a tongue twister for some reason, they are a lot thinner than they used to be. They used to be really, really thick. You could have some crazy, crazy brush marks. Good boy, Batman. My cat is going to want to go out in a second, so I will sort that out. Now, we've got a little bit of mild concentration. I just don't want to accidentally smudge over a spot that we've just already painted over and have to a reasonable standard. Again, any questions, please do leave it in the chat. I'm here to offer advice and techniques as well, especially when it comes to speed painting, which this is absolutely not. But again, I want this miniature to stand out on the battlefield, and I think he really will. Again, that shield's just got a nice bit of colour and depth to it, which is what I was looking for. Right. I will be back in 1 minute. In the meantime, let me go whack Cato Sicarius next to him. You can see different forms of white there. Go on, Batman. Good boy. Excuse me, Tyler. Yes, can I sit down, please? He says no. Good boy. Again, always use your art. Find yourself some inspiration. Just set that out of the way. So if you look at their shield, theirs is more of a warmer silvery white, which is nice because they can really work on like browns and things like that in there. But not really my technique. Again, if we want, we've got so many skulls in here. If we wanted to, we could change the gold to or keep the gold for the rim and go for a cream for the actual skulls, which I feel is what they've done. So it'd be tempting. So we might give that a go now, actually. So again, we're trying to add detail and depth to the shield and make it a bit unique and special, so it doesn't hurt. Now we'll hit in with Talon Sand again, just so we have a bit of depth when we go in with Wraithbone. And we've just got to be really careful not to run onto the edge. Try and keep this nice and clean. Just get that light across there. Always do invest in good lighting, it makes a world of difference. I mean, I'm only 34. I'm very lucky that my eyes work well. I don't need glasses. But you still have to protect your eyes, and that starts from really making sure your lighting is good. So yeah, this is actually a really good idea. Obviously not my idea. Comes from whoever originally painted the Bladeguard veterans. But changing up the textures, going from like a metallic to a more fleshy tone with the skull. That really just adds a bit more interest and depth. And I think these shields are pretty much the standout of this model, and they should be allowed to shine as such. So that is what I will be doing. And again, you can push this extreme as far as you like. I mean, you might equally look at the gold skulls and go, well, that'll do for me. But this just tells a nice little story for me. Especially with all of Warhammer, it's sort of a case of, you know, they honour their dead and everything's, you know, kept down, handed down for generations. It's very knightly. So it's like these might be the skulls of his friends, or a mentor, or all sorts of different stories that you can weave into these miniatures just to make it your own, which I recommend. Now, whilst we have the wet palette back here, we're actually going to do a little blend. So I'm going to do 1 part Talon Sand to 1 part Wraithbone. Now, this Wraithbone takes quite a bit of mixing. Let's give it a good shake. It's really not a very special colour. It's grainy, it's gritty, it's really not great. However, it's still a nice bone colour. You just have to get over the horrendous texture of it. Right. So we have a little bit of paint. And is that a hair from my brush? No. Make sure that's off. So my technique with this is concentrating on the high points and the edges to create like a natural sort of flow and depth to the papery tones of the Purity Seal. So you can see there, just with that, we're just creating a little bit of depth. I mean, to a degree, it kind of does get erased when you start adding scripture into it as well. So don't be too panicky and feel like you have to do the absolute utmost with it. Just taking the phone off of charge. I'm just going to go whack the light on charge. Give me a second, because that's probably going to be my first point of failure. Is that light going? There we go, it's just brightened up a little bit. I thought it was getting a bit dimmer. Brush around on a small artificer. So this is nicely thinned out now thanks to that wet palette. You know, we just want the natural recesses to be a little bit darker, because we are going to do a final highlight on this as well. So there is going to be an element where just the edges and just the very highest points are going to be a bit brighter. So that's the first layer. Gonna let my cat back in, because once again he wants to come back in. Feel free to please ask some questions. I don't have to be here in an echo chamber. Feel free to comment away. Again, I'm trying to play about with different parts of this shield so we can play around with techniques. So let me know what you want to see. I'm going to hit up with the exact same colour for the skulls as well. There doesn't really have to be a difference between them. So I'm going to go in with a bit of a tighter brush. Should be really neat and tidy. Again, I might have to show this on a different video, just so that you can actually see the detail that we're actually having to put down on this bit. But the idea being is we want the wraith bone to be sort of the utmost highlight with this. I mean, you can go further, you can treat the wraith bone as a mid-tone as well. Depends how much depth you want to go in with the miniature. But for me, I just want to be a little bit quicker and not get too bogged down. I know that I've got 3 of these to paint. You'll notice as well, I've left the central skull in gold. I'm tempted to do that in possibly a silver, but that might be too many colours. But the idea being is that no skull is going to be that massive. Well, no. But like, these other skulls could be actual skulls of various heroes of the chapter, but that central skull is a decorative skull, because in the 41st millennium skulls are decorative. Go and try and find a last bit of this paint. Feed that in there. And again, we'll just knock that across. See if you can see the difference there now. A bit more texture to it. So the last colour that we're going to do on this is a pure wraith bone. I don't know if you can hear my cat sneezing in the background there. That'll be Lana. The mother of the 2 boys. She does not like her boys, but we like her boys, so it's tough for Lana. Now, with these scrolls, we're just going to try and keep nice and tight to the edge of the scrolls on here. Just create that nice little highlight. What we don't want to do is get too messy at this stage now. So take your time. Use the edge of your brush. Very, very tip of the brush. And just be nice and careful. Take your time. Because this is not the spot where you want to make mistakes. And some bits, they give you really nice predominant edges that you can really sit into, which isn't a problem. And other times they don't. You don't get these pronounced edges and you have to be really, really mindful. So just go into here now. Again, if you can just see that now, the extra depth that we've got in there. Just turn the daylight setting on that light. Half blinded myself looking at it, but we are. Now, using Wraithbone quite a lot. Wraithbone is, for this, one of those paints that sticks to the tip of my brush. I do have to be careful to wash it quite often. Right, so now I'm going to do the final detail on the skulls. I just want to check my brushes. Looks like it was splintering a little bit, so I'll just get a little touch back up again. Make sure that point is nice and sharp. Go in, I'm just going to lightly pick up on certain details in those skulls. Kind of trying to stick to like the high points. So we can create a bit more depth to it. Yeah, it's coming along nicely now. Make sure that point is nice. If it's not, we go back, wash it off, and start again. Hopefully you can still see it, so I have to move it across a little bit, just to ensure that I can see it. Nice and neat and tidy now. You really don't want to go back over anything else, because that just adds time unnecessarily. But any of you that are just starting out with painting, don't be afraid of making mistakes. Learning to correct it is also just part of the process. Just the very top of the skulls as well. Some little dots up here with this. And then we'll go in and show you all. Sorry, I'm being a little bit quiet, really having to concentrate at the spot. There we go. Just get those bottom row teeth looking good there. And as you can see, we have a nice bit of depth and detail there to the shield. We've got the last little bits to do, which we'll do on the purity seals. And then we should be calling it a day. So we've got two types of purity seals here. One with a skull emblem and one that is blank. So for the skull emblem, I'm going to fill that in nicely. A little bit like we've done with the skulls for the shield. And then you'll notice the purity seals have divots on the edges where it's overspilled. So just try and make sure that you're nice and neat on those edges, that you've still got the depth in between it. That especially matters for the flatter, less embellished purity seal. I'll just dab a bit into the centre as well. Again, I'm just trying to create that depth. And then lastly, we'll hit on with the Genestealer Purple. You might think this is a bit of a weird one because this is quite a pinky purple, but it's actually a really nice colour. Let me just get the excess off of that. It's bright enough and it's done on such a small scale that even though you're applying it over something that is mostly red, it works. So again, we're kind of just trying to hit the edges of the overspill, not the full thing. I want to use it quite sparingly, but it's going to create texture, which is relatively important here. Just hit up the edges of that. So the shield finalised at this point. Let me just get the light round, and there we go. Let's see if the purity seal's on. If you want to do the scripture, I would recommend taking either Black Legion or Abaddon Black, either thinning it on the wet palette. If it's Black Legion, you can tend to use it neat depending on how old your Black Legion is, and then very neatly just doing your lines across. So yeah, I hope you've all enjoyed the video. Again, please like and subscribe. It makes all of the difference, especially whilst the channel is small. It just helps the channel to grow, find new audience members that really like the channel, and it gives me a chance to be able to push this onto something that can be a bit more full-time, where I can focus more on the painting, more on the building, as well as running a few competitions. I'm sure there are plenty of you out there that would love to have like a model painted up and then sent your way, which is on the cards, I think, for the future. So yeah, please like and subscribe. I hope you've enjoyed it. I hope you've learnt a little bit, even though it's been a little bit chaotic. But yeah, next video we'll be working more in depth on the blues and a bit of the gold as well, so you can see that process done fully, and maybe a bit of leather work as well. Thank you for watching. Goodbye for now.